She came to save her grandfather's marina, but uncovered a fight that could cost her everything. Olivia Gale stepped off the ferry onto the weathered wooden pier of Cliffside Harbor, the boards groaning under her weight, as if whispering their decades of history back to her. Carrying the memory of her grandfather Simon's careful hands, the summers of laughter and work, and the quiet moments spent watching the tide ebb and flow. The salty wind lashed at her hair and jacket, carrying with it a sharp, briny tang of the sea mixed with the faint, acrid scent of rotting wood and old tar, a smell that immediately drew her back to childhood memories. Simon's voice calm but firm. "Measure twice. Cut once, Olivia." The soft scrape of sandpaper against planks, the rhythm of waves against the pilings. She paused mid-step, letting her gaze sweep over the marina, now a shadow of the vibrant place she remembered. Warped planks sagged under their own weight, rusted nails poked from beams, ropes frayed and tangled, and half-sunken boats leaned precariously against the docks, their once bright hulls faded to dull, gray-green, barnacles encrusting every surface. She ran a gloved hand along a railing, splintering under her touch, and felt a pang of loss. This was Simon's life's work, and it had been abandoned for far too long. The harbor, alive in her memories, now seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see whether she would honor it or abandon it, as everyone else had. Every step she took produced a creak or groan from the planks beneath her feet, reminders of time and neglect, as if the very structure of the marina itself was testing her resolve. Olivia crouched beside a small, tilted sailboat, brushing away debris and algae, feeling the soft, swollen wood beneath her fingers, and imagining Simon's approving nod, his patient corrections, the pride in his eyes when a boat balanced perfectly or a new plank was fitted flawlessly. Her chest tightened with grief and responsibility. The marina was more than property, it was a legacy. She could feel it in the uneven sway of the docks, the way the tide pressed against the pilings, the creaking of rigging from the few boats still afloat, each sound a call to action, a reminder that the work would not wait for hesitation. Olivia climbed the slight incline to the old boathouse, opening the door to a symphony of dust motes dancing in morning sunlight. Tools were scattered across the floor, once meticulously arranged by Simon, now lying in tangled disarray. Hammers with worn handles, chisels dulled with rust, planes coated in dust, ropes coiled yet caked with years of salt and neglect. She ran her fingers along the handles, imagining Simon's hands guiding hers, feeling the weight of history and care imbued in every object, the unspoken lessons passed down through touch and labor. She remembered him once tapping a heavy iron-bound chest in the corner of the shed, his eyes twinkling as he said, "The wood holds the shape, Olivia, but the paper holds the soul. If you're ever lost, look for the soul." She glanced at the chest now, but it was buried under a mountain of rotted sails and rusted anchors, seemingly inaccessible. Her city-bred instincts urged her to photograph, catalog, organize, yet another part of her longed to simply begin work, to feel the physical connection to Simon's teachings through motion, sweat, and focus. She took a deep, steadying breath, inhaling the briny air, the mixture of sea, tar, and mildew, and made a decision: she would stay. Not merely for the summer, not merely to ready the marina for sail, but to restore, to honor, to preserve every inch of what her grandfather had built. Each nail driven, each plank replaced, each rope tied would be an act of reverence, an acknowledgement of decades of labor, of a life dedicated to the water and to craftsmanship. She began pacing the docks, taking mental notes, mapping the repairs needed in vivid detail. The boathouse roof sagged dangerously, the main pier leaned, half the pilings rotted at the base, the mooring lines on several boats had frayed beyond repair, and the fleet of neglected vessels required cleaning, sanding, painting, and balance checks. Her notebook, worn leather binding and yellowed pages, lay open in her hand as she jotted priorities and sketching diagrams, estimating materials and time needed for each task. Waves lapped rhythmically against the docks, gulls wheeled overhead, their shrill cries punctuating the quiet, the water glinting in shifting hues of blue and green, sunlight casting long shadows across the harbor. Olivia's mind raced with planning, strategy, and memory, imagining Simon guiding her, correcting her technique, praising diligence, the echo of his voice mingling with the cries of seabirds and the slap of water. As she traced the line of the pier to the horizon, the entire harbor came alive in her imagination. Repaired boats gliding across water, sails billowing, children laughing along the docks, Simon's voice carrying across the breeze. But reality remained harsh. Debts were due, permits required attention, and the decay was extensive. She exhaled slowly, letting tension ebb, grounding herself in determination. She would face this, step by step, board by board, nail by nail. She ran her hands over the rotted timber of the main pier, feeling splinters and waterlogged wood, imagining the hours of labor ahead, the skill required, the lessons Simon had imparted. Each task seemed monumental, yet achievable if approached with patience and resolve. The sun climbed higher, glinting off the gently rocking boats, highlighting the peeling paint and algae-streaked wood, and Olivia felt a surge of purpose. Cliffside Harbor was no longer just a memory. It was a challenge, a responsibility, and now, a calling. She whispered to herself, "I'll restore this place. I'll honor him. I won't let it fall." And with that resolve, she stepped back onto the pier, hands steady, mind focused, heart committed, ready to breathe life back into the marina, to reclaim her grandfather's legacy through labor, care, and unwavering attention to every detail, knowing that each plank, each rope, and each nail would carry a piece of Simon's spirit into the future. The following morning, Olivia returned to the pier at first light, the horizon painted in pale pinks and muted golds as the sun's early rays cut across the harbor, reflecting off the water in sparkling ribbons that danced across the rotting wood. Over the first few weeks, the initial survey turned into a grueling marathon of labor. Olivia quickly realized that her city-bred knowledge was only a foundation. She needed the specialized team Dominic eventually brought in to handle the heavy underwater pilings. While the crew reinforced the structural bones of the marina, Olivia and Dominic focused on the precision work. Over the next several weeks, the rhythmic pounding of hammers and the whine of saws became the harbor's new heartbeat. While a specialized team handled the heavy structural reinforcement of the underwater pilings, Olivia and Dominic focused on the precision work of the decks and hulls. The progress was slow and expensive, with Olivia depleting her savings to cover the rising costs of cedar and marine-grade hardware. Dominic worked alongside her, his quiet expertise guiding her through the exhausting physical labor. By the end of the second month, the North Dock was finally stabilized. Standing there, muscles aching but heart light, Olivia felt the first true spark of hope. The marina was no longer just a memory. It was becoming a reality again. The harbor was alive again, not fully restored, but awake, breathing beneath their care, and Olivia felt for the first time a sense of true purpose, a direction that transcended grief, one plank, one rope, one repaired boat at a time. 2 weeks into the restoration, the steady rhythm of their labor was interrupted by a low, rhythmic thrumming. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the edge of the gravel path, its polished surface reflecting the harbor's decay like a dark mirror. From it emerged Arthur Wang, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Olivia Gale, I presume?" he asked, his voice smooth and polished. He extended a hand, confident and deliberate. "Arthur Wang," he introduced himself, city council member and local businessman. "Your grandfather spoke highly of your potential, you know." Olivia's grip was firm, her skepticism rising as Dominic remained a silent shadow beside her. Arthur's gaze swept across the sagging piers. "You've taken on a heavy responsibility," he continued. "I admire that dedication. I've brought some documents you might want to review, routine matters, zoning, and environmental regulations. Nothing you can't handle, of course." He handed her a neatly organized folder, but as Olivia flipped through the pages, she sensed a subtle pressure woven into the legalese. Arthur lingered, gesturing to the deteriorating wood. "It's a beautiful place, but regulations today are strict. Careless restoration could bring delays, fines, complications." Olivia nodded politely, masking her tension. "I'll ensure everything is done properly," she replied. Arthur gave a courteous nod and returned to his vehicle, leaving a cloud of dust behind as he drove off. Olivia exhaled slowly, setting the folder down on the pier. tension and curiosity coiling together. "He seems helpful," she said cautiously, though her voice betrayed uncertainty. Dominic shook his head, gaze fixed on the distant road. "Be careful. There's more to him than he shows. That man plays a long game." Olivia nodded, feeling a mixture of unease and intrigue. The marina suddenly felt smaller, more exposed, the work ahead heavier than before, yet the fire of determination burned brighter. Each plank they had repaired that morning seemed suddenly more significant. Each rope tied a statement of defiance against neglect and manipulation, and Olivia realized that restoring Simon's marina might not be just a labor of love. It might be a test of resolve against forces she had not yet fully understood. She picked up a hammer, Dominic at her side, and together they returned to the work, the steady rhythm of pounding, measuring, and adjusting filling the harbor, the sounds mingling with the distant cries of gulls and the slap of water against worn timbers. And as the sun climbed higher, glinting on water and wood alike, Olivia understood that this summer would demand everything of her: skill, patience, courage, and trust, and that the man who had just left, Arthur Wayne, would be a shadow looming over every decision, every repair, every day she spent trying to honor Simon's legacy. Over the next several days, Olivia and Dominic settled into a steady rhythm of work, the mornings beginning with the gentle slap of waves against pilings and the cries of gulls wheeling overhead, the salt-tinged wind ruffling their hair and clothing that as the heat of the season intensified. Their daily labor shifted from structural repairs to the finer details of restoration. They spent hours sanding down the weather-beaten hulls and applying layers of protective varnish that caught the amber light of the setting sun. The constant smell of sawdust was replaced by the sharp, clean scent of fresh sealant. Olivia noticed how Dominic's movements grew more fluid as they worked in silence, their previous tension slowly dissolving into a focused partnership. By the time they reached the final stretch of the South Pier, the marina had lost its look of abandonment. The wood was smooth, the ropes were taut, and the skeletal remains of the boats had been transformed back into elegant vessels ready for the tide. Olivia knew that together, she and Dominic could face whatever the summer had in store, the weight of Simon's legacy balanced by their determination, skill, and growing connection. A few days later, the morning air hung heavy with fog, the gray mist rolling off the water in sheets that softened the edges of the harbor and cloaked the docks in a ghostly veil. Olivia moved along the pier, hammer in hand, replacing warped boards while keeping an eye on Dominic as he meticulously inspected the hull of a half-sunken sloop. The smell of wet wood, salt, and tar mixed with the faint metallic scent of rust, enveloping the harbor in an aroma that made her feel both nostalgic and alert. The rhythmic sound of their work, the tap of hammer on nail, the scrape of sandpaper, the groan of old timbers, was suddenly punctuated by the crunch of tires on gravel, a sound all too familiar. Olivia glanced up to see the sleek black truck, polished and imposing, rolling to a stop near the entrance of the harbor. From it stepped Arthur Wayne, impeccably dressed as always, the confident tilt of his chin and the measured precision of his movements immediately marking him as a man used to control. "Olivia, good morning," he called, voice smooth, pleasant, yet carrying an undertone that hinted at calculation. He approached with a folder in hand, the pages crisp, the edges straight, each one carefully prepared, gleaming slightly under the overcast light. Dominic's posture stiffened, a subtle tension rippling through his shoulders. Olivia took the folder, or personal obstacle would prevent her from preserving the harbor he loved. The marina was awakening under her hands, and she realized that restoring it was not just about labor or legacy. It was about standing against calculated threats, asserting control over her grandfather's inheritance, and proving both to herself and to the subtle adversary looming in the shadows that she would not yield. And as twilight painted the harbor in hues of deep violet and fading gold, Olivia made a silent vow. Every measure, every nail, every plank would be executed with precision and courage, and Arthur Wayne's attempts to undermine her would be met with foresight, intelligence, and unwavering resolve. The following week, the heat of early summer pressed down on the harbor, the sun relentless in its climb across a cloudless sky, the salt-laden breeze offering little relief as Olivia and Dominic worked from dawn until late afternoon. Every plank replaced, every hull inspected, every rope tightened was a step toward reclaiming the marina from decay. But the arrival of a new challenge shadowed their labor. Dominic had been quiet for much of the morning, his movements precise but thoughtful, occasionally glancing at Olivia with a weight in his eyes she could not yet decipher. Finally, as they rested beneath the half-shaded boathouse, Dominic exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair, fingers dusted with sawdust. "Olivia," he began cautiously, voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." Olivia looked up, concern sharpening her gaze. "What is it?" Dominic hesitated, the struggle evident in his posture. "Arthur, he's offered me a contract. A major project, a private club, completely funded. He wants me to lead it, handle construction, supervise every detail. The problem," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "He wants me to convince you that restoring the marina is a waste, that it's financially unfeasible, too risky, doomed before it even begins." Olivia's stomach tightened. The hammer in her hand felt heavier suddenly, the weight of revelation pressing on her. "And you were considering it?" she asked, voice trembling between disbelief and hurt. Dominic ran a hand down his face, jaw tight. "I've been struggling to keep my workshop afloat. Bills, repairs, supplies. Arthur's offer could save me, give me stability." But his eyes met hers, conflicted, searching for understanding. "I don't want to betray Simon's legacy. I don't want to betray you." Olivia's hands dropped the hammer, splinters pricking her palms, a mixture of frustration and hurt surging through her. "So while we were working out here, you were already holding the contract that would tear it all down." Olivia's voice was sharp, a mixture of cold disappointment and betrayal. "I thought you cared about this legacy as much as I did, but you were just waiting for the right moment to tell me it's impossible." Dominic's shoulders slumped, the weight of guilt visible in every movement. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said quietly, voice thick. I just thought maybe I could find a way to honor both obligations, to you, to Simon, and to my own survival." Olivia exhaled sharply, stepping back, her emotions a storm of betrayal, confusion, and lingering trust. The harbor, the sun, the gulls above, they seemed distant now, muted by the tension that crackled between them. For a moment, neither spoke, only the gentle slap of water against the pilings and the distant cries of gulls filling the space. Olivia finally spoke, her voice cold but resolute. "Dominic, I need to think. I can't work with someone whose loyalty is uncertain." She turned away, pacing the dock, the weight of the folder Arthur had brought the previous day suddenly heavier in her mind. Dominic remained seated on the edge of the boathouse, watching her, remorse etched in every line of his face, realizing that every decision he made could alter not only the progress of the marina but the fragile trust he had built. The next days were tense. Olivia focused more on work than conversation, her attention to each plank, nail, and hull meticulous, almost mechanical, as she processed the revelation of Dominic's potential betrayal. One afternoon, a sudden squall caught them mid-repair on the outer dock. Without a word, they moved in a practiced, silent dance, Dominic bracing the shifting beams while Olivia lashed the safety lines. Rain lashed their faces, blurring the line between sea and sky, and for a moment, the shared danger spoke louder than the betrayal. They weren't just fixing wood. They were keeping each other from falling, a stark reminder that in the harbor, as in life, no one survives alone. Dominic, meanwhile, worked in silence, offering assistance when necessary but never imposing, aware that his previous misstep had altered the delicate balance between them. Yet, despite the tension, their shared labor continued, the rhythm of repair offering a tenuous bridge between them. In quiet moments, Olivia would catch Dominic watching her, a mixture of concern, regret, and longing in his gaze, and she felt the lingering pull of connection despite the shadow of mistrust. By the end of the week, the North Pier was fully repaired, boats stabilized, and the initial work on the South Dock begun, the physical progress a stark contrast to the emotional turbulence between them. Olivia realized that this summer was no longer simply about restoring a harbor. It was about navigating human motives, balancing trust and betrayal, and confronting the subtle manipulations of both external and internal forces. And in the quiet evening, As the sun dipped low and the golden light flickered across water and wood, Dominic approached Olivia once more, hands empty, voice steady but soft. I want you to know, everything I've done for you, for the marina, for Simon's memory, has been genuine. The offer? I'm still deciding. I haven't betrayed you, not truly. Olivia studied him, searching for sincerity in his eyes, aware that the coming days would demand both courage and forgiveness, and that the choices Dominic made now could determine not only their partnership, but the fate of Simon's legacy itself. The harbor shimmered in the twilight, sails and timbers catching the last light, and Olivia felt a renewed sense of resolve. She would protect the marina, face Arthur's schemes, and navigate Dominic's conflict with the same precision she applied to every repair, every plank, every rope. The work ahead was not just physical, it was moral, emotional, and strategic, and she knew she could not falter. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of salt and varnish as Olivia arrived at the marina, heart heavy with the revelation of the night before. She found Dominic already at work on the south dock, his shoulders tense. Approaching him, she held out the folder Arthur had provided. "Dominic," she said, her voice tight, "I know about the contract. I know Arthur offered to save your workshop if you convince me to walk away." Dominic froze, the sanding block slipping from his hand. He turned, his face etched with a mixture of guilt and exhaustion. "Olivia, I haven't signed anything. He's been squeezing me for weeks. Bills, equipment failure, the threat of closure. I was desperate." Olivia searched his face, the sting of betrayal clashing with the sight of his genuine distress. "I thought we were partners," she whispered. Dominic stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "We are. Seeing you here, seeing what we've done, I realized I'd rather lose the shop than my integrity. I'm staying, Olivia. No more secrets." The silence between them was long, punctuated only by the waves. Finally, Olivia nodded slowly. "Then prove it. We finished the North Pier today, together." The morning fog clung stubbornly to the harbor, muffling sounds and casting the marina in a muted, almost dreamlike light. As Olivia moved among the docks with measured steps, each footfall resonating softly against the planks she had repaired with her own hands. Her thoughts lingered on the events of the past week, the contract, Dominic's conflict, Arthur Wayne's subtle but relentless manipulations, and a new resolve had taken root in her mind. She had learned, painfully, that trust could be tested, that loyalty was fragile, and that protecting Simon's legacy required not only skill and labor but vigilance, intelligence, and courage. The tool shed creaked under the wind, and Olivia approached it, the keys to the door cold and metallic in her hand. The interior smelled faintly of sawdust and varnish, familiar and comforting, yet today it held the promise of revelation. Dominic had been quiet for several days, his distance a silent acknowledgement of their fractured trust, leaving Olivia to navigate the harbor largely alone. She unlocked the shed, stepping inside, and the morning light illuminated stacks of boards, tools, and nautical instruments carefully arranged as Simon had left them. Deep in the back of the shed, inside a heavy, locked sea chest hidden beneath a pile of old sails, Olivia found what she had been searching for. It was a leather-bound ledger, its spine cracked with age, containing not only Simon's personal notes, but also the original land deeds and an irrevocable heritage trust he had established years ago. These documents explicitly protected the marina from commercial redevelopment and listed environmental variances that Arthur had conveniently omitted from his reports. Her heart raced as she realized this wasn't just a diary, but a meticulously kept record of land deeds and environmental variances. This was the evidence she needed, the key to countering Arthur's designs on the property. At that moment, Dominic entered the shed quietly, pausing as he saw Olivia hunched over the pages, eyes wide with both recognition and relief. "You found it," he whispered, almost reverently. Olivia looked up, a mixture of triumph and lingering hurt in her gaze. "I did," she said, her voice steady, though her chest heaved with excitement and adrenaline. Simon anticipated everything. He protected the marina from people like Arthur, even before he was gone. These documents, they change everything. Dominic moved closer, examining the pages with her, and a faint, tentative smile broke across his face. It's incredible," This is what he would have wanted us to find together, he said softly, eyes meeting hers. Olivia nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle firmly on her shoulders. The discovery was more than just protection against Arthur. It was a tangible connection to her grandfather's foresight, his legacy, and his enduring influence. Over the next few hours, they meticulously reviewed every page, every annotation, every sketch, formulating a strategy to present the evidence in the city council and publicly secure the marina's future. The morning sun climbed higher, dissipating the fog, illuminating both the docks and their renewed sense of purpose. Olivia's mind buzzed with clarity and resolve. She knew the confrontation with Arthur would be imminent, the legal and political maneuvering complex, and that Dominic's loyalty, once fractured, needed rebuilding through truth and action. Yet the find had transformed the tension into opportunity, the anxiety into determination. By mid-afternoon, the harbor hummed with the activity of repair, preparation, and quiet plotting. Olivia and Dominic worked side by side once more, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Every plank hammered, every rope secured, every boat stabilized was now imbued not only with physical labor, but with the strategic intent to protect Simon's vision. As the sun began to dip, casting elongated shadows across the docks and painting the water with streaks of gold and crimson, Olivia closed the leather-bound journal carefully, securing it in her bag. She turned to Dominic, eyes alight with resolve and a hint of tentative trust. "Tomorrow," she said firmly, "we go to the city council. Arthur won't see this coming." Dominic nodded, placing a reassuring hand on the journal. "Together," he said simply, voice low but full of commitment. Olivia exhaled, feeling the mix of tension, excitement, and vindication coursing through her. The harbor stretched before them, quiet but alive, reflecting both the fading light and the hard-won promise of justice and restoration. Simon's legacy, once in peril, was now tangible, safeguarded in ink and memory, and the summer's work had transformed from repair to strategic action, from labor to triumph, setting the stage for the coming confrontation that would define the future of the marina, their relationship, and the town itself. The city council chamber was heavy with the scent of polished wood and the faint tang of paper, sunlight streaming through tall windows, illuminating the rows of benches filled with residents of Cliffside, all murmuring in anticipation. Olivia stood near the front, folder in hand, leather-bound journal pressed securely under her arm, eyes scanning the room as murmurs quieted with the arrival of council members. The atmosphere was tense. Arthur Wayne sat confidently near the center, impeccably dressed, his posture exuding control and charm, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth, oblivious to the storm about to unfold. Dominic remained at her side, quieter than usual, his presence steady and reassuring, though the lingering tension from previous days hung between them like an invisible thread. Olivia's gaze swept across the council, settling on familiar faces, longtime residents, business owners, even a few younger citizens who had grown up around the marina. Each face bore expressions ranging from curiosity to mild skepticism, all waiting to see how the confrontation would unfold. She drew in a steadying breath, feeling the weight of responsibility for Simon's legacy and the marina she had spent weeks restoring. Clearing her throat, Olivia began. "Members of the council, residents of Cliffside, I stand before you today not as a city designer, not solely as Simon Gale's granddaughter, but as someone entrusted with preserving a piece of our town's history, a harbor that has been part of our community for generations." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the chamber. Arthur's smile flickered slightly, a subtle tension in his jaw betraying the first hint of concern. Olivia continued, carefully placing the leather-bound journal on the council's central table. "These documents," she said, opening the journal to reveal Simon's meticulous notes, detail the marina's construction, its legal protections, and the foresight my grandfather took to ensure that this harbor, a place of work, leisure, and heritage, would be safeguarded against unauthorized development. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience as Olivia methodically presented the journal, flipping to pages that outlined historical designations, land ownership specifics, and the legal clauses that protected portions of the marina from alteration or demolition. Dominic stepped forward, his voice steady and professional as he addressed the council's engineers. I've personally inspected every piling and structural beam listed in Mr. Wayne's report as hazardous. Using the original specifications from Simon's ledger, we've proven that the foundations are not only sound but exceed current safety margins for maritime heritage sites. Arthur's data wasn't just outdated. He had systematically scrubbed the digital municipal archives of the heritage easements Simon had secured decades ago. He relied on the fact that the only remaining proof was a paper original, hidden somewhere in the salt-damaged ruins of the marina. A gamble he was now losing. Olivia's voice grew stronger, firmer with each revelation. Mr. Wayne has presented himself as a benefactor, as someone assisting in the restoration, but the documents clearly show that his plans were designed to override established protections, to build a private club on land legally safeguarded by these very measures. Arthur rose, composed but noticeably tense, attempting to interject, but Olivia anticipated his argument, producing photocopies of the journal entries and legal annotations, distributing them among council members and residents alike. These are facts, she continued, backed by historical records, legal documentation, and the foresight of my grandfather, a man devoted to this harbor and this community. Any attempt to manipulate, bypass, or obscure these protections will not succeed. Whispers spread through the room, the once confident smile on Arthur's face fading as council members examined the evidence, nodding subtly, reading through pages that left little room for doubt. Olivia's eyes met Dominic's. The tension between them softened slightly, a shared sense of triumph and relief grounding their connection after the turbulence of prior weeks. Arthur's voice, when he finally spoke, was sharp with desperation. He reached for the folder Olivia had presented, his fingers trembling slightly, his polished facade finally cracking to reveal the panicked businessman beneath. He looked at the council, then at Olivia, realizing that the city girl had outmaneuvered him by using the very thing he despised most: old-fashioned, unalterable truth. A journal? This is decades old. It doesn't account for modern safety amendments. But the council chair leaned forward, her eyes cold. It accounts for the deed restrictions and the irrevocable heritage trust Simon Gale established, Mr. Wayne. These documents are legally binding and were never disclosed in your proposal. The room erupted in murmurs of approval, and as the council moved to officially deny Arthur's permits, the weight that had been pressing on Olivia's chest for weeks finally lifted. Olivia felt a rush of vindication, the weeks of labor, trust testing, and strategic planning culminating in this moment. Residents approached, congratulating her, thanking her for preserving a piece of the town they all loved. Dominic remained beside her, quiet, yet his eyes reflected pride and a hint of forgiveness, a silent acknowledgement of shared effort and commitment. Later, as the chamber emptied, Olivia and Dominic walked along the marina, the evening sun casting long golden reflections across the water, the repaired docks gleaming, the boats gently swaying. The air smelled of varnish and salt, familiar and comforting, infused now with the triumph of victory. "We did it," Dominic said softly, the words carrying both relief and pride. Olivia smiled, closing the journal carefully, placing it in her bag. Yes, Simon would be proud. And the marina, it's ours to protect, to restore, to cherish. Dominic's hand brushed hers briefly, tentative but warm, a silent acknowledgement of renewed trust and partnership. The harbor, alive with the gentle lapping of waves and the distant cries of gulls, seemed to breathe in relief, as if echoing the victory of its preservation. Plans for restoration, for new boat construction, for the vibrant life of the marina were no longer threatened. Olivia looked over the docks, taking in the gleaming wood, the stable vessels, the life she and Dominic had nurtured back into Simon's legacy. "A new era," she murmured, her voice firm with conviction. "And this time, it's ours." Dominic nodded, side by side with her, eyes on the horizon, the promise of summers filled with work, laughter, and connection stretching endlessly before them. The harbor, restored not just by labor but by perseverance, courage, and strategic action, stood as a testament to resilience, legacy, and the unwavering human spirit. The early morning sun spilled across Cliffside Harbor, gilding the wooden piers with a warm glow, casting elongated reflections on the gently rippling water. Olivia stepped onto the docks, journal tucked securely under her arm, Dominic walking beside her, their steps synchronized in the quiet rhythm of shared purpose. The marina thrummed with renewed life. Boats rocked gently in the soft current, sails flapped lazily in the breeze, and the faint scent of varnish and salt water mingled with the fresh aroma of cedar from the repaired planks. Months had passed since the council chamber confrontation. Weeks of meticulous work, planning, and careful coordination had transformed the harbor into a functioning, vibrant space that honored Simon's legacy while embracing a new chapter. Olivia paused to observe a small fishing skiff, freshly restored and painted in bright blue and white, sitting firmly on its cradle at the dock's edge. Dominic crouched nearby, adjusting the rigging, his hands skilled and precise, but his eyes always flicking toward her with warmth, reassurance, and a hint of lingering affection. "It's perfect," Olivia said softly, voice carrying the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment. Dominic glanced up, his dark hair catching the sunlight. "We did it together," he replied, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I think Simon would have approved of every nail, every plank, every rope." Olivia returned his smile, though her mind lingered on the summer's trials, the tension, the betrayal, the lessons learned, the victories earned. "I think he'd be proud. And so should we be, Dominic. We've kept this place alive, preserved its soul, and now we can finally shape its future." Their footsteps carried them along the pier, past boats bobbing gently, past the repaired boathouse where they had discovered the leather-bound journal, now safely preserved in a climate-controlled cabinet for reference in history. The residents of Cliffside were already beginning to arrive, some drawn by curiosity, others by the promise of restored workspaces and leisure opportunities, all united by the revived heartbeat of the marina. Children ran along the piers, laughter echoing across the water, while local fishermen inspected their vessels, nodding in approval at the stability and organization Olivia and Dominic had brought to the harbor. Olivia's gaze swept across the scene, her heart swelling with satisfaction, tempered by the memories of struggle, the weight of responsibility, and the persistence required to navigate both human motives and mechanical labor. Dominic approached her, a freshly carved wooden model boat in hand, a gift for her dedication, a symbol of the partnership they had rebuilt and the trust that now strengthened it. "For you," he said, offering the delicate model, its hull polished, sails taut, every detail meticulously crafted. Olivia accepted it, turning it over in her hands, feeling the weight of both the craftsmanship and the sentiment. "It's beautiful," she murmured, eyes meeting his with gratitude and an unspoken acknowledgement of their renewed bond. As the day unfolded, they coordinated tasks with local workers, planned educational workshops for youth interested in boat building, and began drafting schedules for community events to keep the marina alive and engaged. The air was vibrant, filled with chatter, the creaking of wooden planks, and the soft slap of water against hulls, a symphony of revival and continuity. In quiet moments, Olivia and Dominic would step aside, discussing strategies, sharing memories of Simon, and exchanging glances that spoke more than words could convey. Trust rebuilt, respect renewed, and a deep connection forged through adversity. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of amber, rose, and violet, Olivia stood at the edge of the pier, Dominic beside her, both silhouettes outlined against the shimmering water. "A new era," she said, voice firm, carrying a mixture of triumph, reflection, and anticipation. "For the marina, for Cliffside, and for us." Dominic nodded, resting a hand lightly on hers. "And this time, we're riding it together." The harbor, alive and resilient, reflected the promise of summers ahead, of community, of craftsmanship, and of enduring human connection. Olivia felt a deep, grounding sense of purpose. The legacy of her grandfather Simon Gale had been preserved, but more importantly, it had been expanded, adapted, and infused with new life, guided by integrity, perseverance, and shared vision. Together, Olivia and Dominic walked along the docks, their shadows stretching long across the water, the gentle lapping of waves a reminder of both the passage of time and the constancy of what they had fought to protect. The marina was no longer simply a collection of wood and water. It was a living testament to dedication, foresight, and the power of trust rebuilt. As twilight settled over Cliffside Harbor, casting a soft glow across the town, Olivia inhaled deeply, feeling the blend of salt, wood, and victory in the air, and knew that the story of the marina, of Simon's legacy, of their summer, of their connection, was only just beginning. The harbor, and those who cherished it, would thrive, a testament to the enduring strength of human endeavor, love, and resilience.